All right, I was going to answer a few questions. I had some people leave some comments, and sometimes it's just easier to make a video. One of the questions was the guy mentioned that I didn't put any sealer under the washers here on the head studs in the valve cover area. I don't usually do that. A lot of guys will glue the washer or put a little silicone so the stud doesn't weep out the stud. I don't really have that issue too often, and I find if you want to do that, instead of putting it on the washer, if you just go behind the head before you fire it up and just put a little silicone and seal the stud off there, that seems to work a little better than putting the silicone inside the valve cover area. I have seen quite a few cars that come in that they get too excessive, and that's just being sloppy, I know, but they'll slop that washer up in the silicone, get into the pump or be in the screen. So I don't seal these. That's a good tip that you can. One of my subscribers likes to put a little sealer under the washer, and then it keeps the oil from wicking out the thread. That's something that you can do, and that's something that I don't do. I might try that on one of my stock motors. This motor probably won't see a lot of a lot of miles. It's going to be more like a little race motor, so street race motor, but we're not going to put enough miles where it's going to be weeping out of those before we can address it. The other question that I had was, I have a subscriber that is running a set of high lifts on a K7, and that is how they're set up to run with high lifts. Scooter's been having a little issue with heat in his car and breaking valve springs. That's one of the reasons I'm putting this together. I'm trying to see what the deal is on the spring deal, and I think he likes to get greedy on the springs. I know what it is, but I did put those bird rockers that he gave me on here this morning. I made 2 push rods up and put these on, and then the lift came out to 640 lift. These 650 springs are good for 630 lift, and the rest of the space is for coil bond. So anything over 630, you're going past the manufacturer recommendation on the spring. And with the 1.6s, it was taking that to 148, and it was chasing the 148, 648, and it was chasing the piston pretty hard. So the 1.4s work really good. It puts us right at 608 lift, and I think that'll be pretty decent. Like I said, if it doesn't make the power that it should, we'll just take it apart and put an FK89 in it. Somebody asked me if this was a C45, and it's definitely not a C45. That would have been easier. Would have fit the motor a lot better. This cam has a lot of lift at the cam, and uses less rocker. So I'll tell you, those 1.6s did take it from 608 to 648, though. 40 thousandths increase on the lift. But anyway, Scooter's been having the heat issue, back to the topic, and he had a Berg style head on there, welded up, and basically this design. Good set of race heads, and he's driving them on the street. Of course, he's got the compression down a little bit, but the springs kept breaking, and finally broke a spring and chucked a valve into the combustion chamber, and it was nasty. So he changed to the 044s, put the 1-to-1 rockers on there. He ended up with 500 lift. He also checked the double off and put a single, good single though. You need to get like a Webb, or there's a couple different companies. Norris makes a good single. Berg has a good single spring, but you need a spring that has enough travel, to travel 500 lift and not coil bind. But 500 lift with a good set of heads is still pretty snappy, and it'll definitely take a lot of heat out of the motor, and the spring will live a lot longer. Plus, you're not putting near the spring pressure on the cam, and that's what wipes them out, is all the spring pressure. So anytime you can reduce the spring pressure and drive around it, I think you're far better off with the single spring. And I like to incorporate a single spring on a lot of my motors. I built a motor for Noel for his bus, and I don't know if you guys remember, we used those bug pack springs, and they got really super installed height on them, but I don't think you can get the bug pack stuff anymore now that it's been bought out. But So hopefully that answers those few questions, and I didn't get too far off topic, because I'm famous for that. But I did change these studs out. These were quite challenging. These were, I didn't think they were going to come out. I had to probably strip them out of there, and you can see they damaged them pretty well. I tried to double nut them, and I wasn't having it. And then once I got the stud out of the head, these studs wouldn't screw in. So I ended up having to retap the stud boss there, rocker boss, and make that work. So quite a few hours in this little ordeal just today. We did incorporate some lash caps on this setup because we are using the high lifts. Anytime you use the high lift, you should probably incorporate a lash cap. It gives you a little more sweep area on the valve, and it takes all the work off the tip of the valve, of course. So the rocker arm geometry came out pretty sweet with the 15,000 spacer on there. That was the thinnest one I had, and it's pretty parallel at half lift. I'll take the when I get everything together, we'll do a little video and I'll show you that. I had some scat push rods for this thing that I started out with. Here's the scat push rod. The Berg rods are all, I went and bought these. I had a little accident with one of these. I was cutting them and I had them on the floor down here, and I knocked something off the bench and this happened. And you know, it just wadded the push rod up. That was you know, the Volkswagen gods telling me not to use that. So I went down and I don't know, these are 120 bucks. They ain't cheap, but we use these in Noel's car. There's the instructions. I like that. You get instructions, but they're 160,000 psi push rod kit. It's a GB 425 is the instructor, or the number, and these are 4130, so they're pretty good construction. I picked up the tubes, the JC tubes. We got to put all these together. Scooter took these out of the bag. He said everything was in here. I don't see any O-rings. I know he had this one installed on his car. He's like, I used one of them. So we'll have to see if all the stuff's there for that. If it is, that's great. If not, we'll have to order some of those. And I didn't pay him for them either, so if the shit's not right, he can have them right back. He did give me a set of these with him, though. And I bought one of these magnets for the sump, you know, to collect all the particles, if any occur. So that's what's going on here. I made a video of how to make those push rods because somebody asked me to do that. And I did have one guy say I should put a Subaru motor in my Volkswagen, and we definitely don't do that here. There are guys you can go watch that do that, I guess. And I did tell him that I've never seen a fast Volkswagen with a Subaru motor, and that we would be happy to race one if you could produce one. So I don't know. I like putting Volkswagen motors in Volkswagens. Call me silly. That's just the way I like it. And we don't have any fast Subaru Volkswagens in this part of the world. And I go to a lot of Volkswagen races, and I've yet to see one ever show up. So that should tell you something. But I think after you add all that water, radiator, and fans, and you know, all the bullshit back there, you know, this aluminum case will upset the back of a Volkswagen. And there's only so much torsion you can put into the car to make the suspension work properly. And they're pretty suited to what we use. So I bet that one of those would work good in the front of the car. Nobody's tried that yet. And the problem with those is the training is all wrong for a Subaru motor. But anywho, we won't get off topic. That's not what we do here. I mean, we get off topic, but we don't mess with Subarus. You can go see Time to Tinker for that. He is putting a Subaru motor in a Volkswagen over there for his daughter, and that's cool. But whatever. I just prefer Volkswagen stuff than Volkswagens. But that's that. I'll upload this for you. I'll try to read through the comments and answer some questions. I've been trying to go through there and answer some of them. And I was at Scooters today and I didn't take the camera. He was even working on a Porsche today. And he doesn't usually do that, so I didn't want to make any videos. But he quit working on those a long time ago. And I used to love them, and he used to hate them. But he does have a couple customers that still patronize the shop, you know, over the years. So he takes care of those guys. But anyway, this is about ready to, we'll come out here in a little while and we'll take these rocker shims or studs out and go through that again and retap those bosses. We'll put our new studs in and put this thing together as a long block. I think we're pretty close. I'll have to see how those push rod tubes look. And next is the header and sheet metal. So I'm going to get the Burns stainless steel connector for this and weld up an exhaust. My son works down at Mazworks and they have a pretty good selection of stainless steel down there. So we'll do that. We'll go that route. Some of it's just J-tubes. And once you get to the front of the motor, that's where it gets sort of tricky. I want to make a side exit collector, and I'm going to make this 1 3/4 tubing. So I think that'll be a good size for the power I want to make. I was going to, 2 inch would be the next, or 1 7/8 would be the next step up, but I don't think I need that. 1 3/4 should be good. And we'll see what that looks like with the flanges and stuff I have, and how it looks when it's laid out. But I was going to maybe do a step, and I just haven't decided yet. I have to go look at all the bits and pieces they have down there, and then I can make a better decision. A lot of people are like, why would you go through all that trouble? And the deal is a good header is about $600 now, and you can buy a nice merged collector probably straight out the back of the car for, I think they're like $379 if you buy them from CB. They're the only ones that sell the proper size tubing. That's why a lot of people are running around with 1 5/8 stuff, wondering why they're not making no power. But that's a whole nother video and big arguments over that. But I've tried it before, and the more header you put on, the faster that shit will go. I guarantee it. I had a 1776, and when I worked at Scooters, I started with 1 1/2 merged Berg exhaust. And then I talked him into 1 5/8 because, he was like my daddy. So it was like, getting my ass whipped when I wanted to do something, that he didn't recommend. And he was, 1 1/2 guy, 1 5/8, even on the big motors. Well, back then, it would be a, 2 liter, 82 by 88 is what we built the most of. And then when the 94s came out, he wouldn't use the 92. So, but anyway, I kept going up on my header size. I had a little 1776. It's that car you guys saw in that video that I did. There's a couple cool pictures of that in street trim. My street car would go 1308. And just a little tidbit on the valve job thing. Scooter, me and him worked in that shop for years, but he would go to the Bergs every year for Christmas, and he would spend a week out there. And finally, him and Gary, or one of them, got to be pretty good buddies. Maybe it was Clyde. And they showed him how to do a proper valve job, multi-angles, how to cut the seats, and to get a thin seat, thin as possible, at the top of the valve. And my car went from 1360s to 13Os from just doing a valve job on the heads after he got the valve job lesson. So we've learned some of this stuff along the way, by actually trying it. And it's not just, when I say you want, the best possible angles and the thinnest you can get it and the highest at the top of the valve you can make it, that does make power. But the header and, we'll get the carburetor set up on here, put the manifolds up, they're done. I'm going to order a new oil cooler and a new stand and put an alternator on this. And I need to get a fan that's welded. But anyway, we were talking about the exhaust, and like I said, I used to sneak exhaust systems, and I would put them on that mule. That was the mule car, we would always test stuff on that, and I would go to the track on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and sometimes they had a race on Sunday, but I was there at least 3 times a week. And when I was a kid working down there, I had a shoebox I would keep in my car, and every time I make a pass, I would spray the ticket with hairspray so the ink wouldn't disappear. And I would keep them in that shoebox. And Scooter used to love to tell people, you know, hey man, he's made a bunch of passes in his car, and they'd be like, yeah, yeah. And there was probably about 1,000 ET slips in that box. And that's how you learn stuff, how the car speeds up at different parts of the track. And when you try different things, if it goes faster, you know right away. Well, we had a guy come in, Sam Harkey, and he hurt one of his big motors. And he was a mismatch guy, you know, he just bought what he could find back in the day. And back in the day, I mean, stuff was good. And he had a 4-tuned, I don't know if you guys remember that. It had a 4 on the collector welded into it. And they were super merged. And his was 1 7/8". And I put that bad boy on my car, and that thing went 1290s with that header. And I only got to borrow it for a short amount of time, and I was pretty poor back then, so I went right back to what I had. But I've talked Nolan to playing with the header size and different ignition boxes, and you know, we've picked up quite a bit. My turbo car picked up about 6/10, and we made a 2-inch header for it and made it equal length and put more spark to it. So we did 2 things at once there, so I don't know exactly which made all the power, but it stopped hurting push rods and stuff when we made the header equal length. When you get that short header, it's real hard once you get over 15 pounds of boost. When you start putting spring to it, it wants to kill the short cylinders on the exhaust, and it just becomes an unbalanced thing. It can't get the exhaust out of the cylinder, and then the valve won't open. There's so much pressure in the hole. So we did run into that issue. That's why all our stuff is equal length, especially on a turbo car. So that's where we're at with that. That's exhaust. You know, a couple guys have asked me about exhaust size, and I buy the biggest header you can possibly afford is what I would do, and then tune the car to it. So, but a lot of guys will tell you that's awful advice, but that's just the way I do it. So I'm going to spend some money on the exhaust because I know that makes quite a bit of power, and I think it'll be cool to, you know, make it my own, and I want to make it exit off to the side over there. And I think if I put a Burns collector on there, it might be worth a little bit of power. So that's what I'm planning to do. I'll go in and upload this for you guys. And I'm going to come back out in a little while and put these push rods in. These are some Badman pajamas. I got those all cut. And I made a video for you on how to do that, or how I do that. And I'll put that up too. So I hope I answered some questions and I didn't babble on too much, because I love to ramble, you know. And we have to think of some sort of breather system for this too. It's going to be incorporated in the valve covers, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to buy some funky valve cover for this because of those roller rockers. They're pretty out there, you know what I mean? They're big, so you can see how far out the stud is compared to the factory stud over here, and they're quite a bit wider, you know, the assembly itself. But I will tell you, they were really sexy to set up as far as the rocker arm geometry, and that big ass wheel makes it real easy, man. It never lose contact with the center of the lash cap. It never tried to drive off the bottom or the top, and that part came out really sweet. I tried to make these push rods. I always do this. It's a good idea. You can see how the nut is tightened down there and the adjuster is in its happy spot. You don't want to run the adjuster down to the push rod. And what I mean by that is you want to keep this cup as close as you can to the body of the push rod or the rocker, and it keeps this adjuster from breaking. It gives it some support in here. When you run this down and you only have you know, part of the adjuster showing, and there's more thread on the nut than there is adjuster showing, you sort of weaken the whole setup by moving this cup out of the rocker arm and by not having enough thread contact on the adjuster. So that's the happy spot, you know, right there. You want a little couple 3/4 threads sticking out the top when you get your push rods correct. Don't try to make your rocker arm geometry with your adjusters, you know. I always try to adjust these and put them exactly where I want them. and then get my geometry there. Most of your geometry comes from the length of the push rod, and if you're cutting the push rod, you should be able to get the geometry pretty damn close without putting spacer under that rocker arm. We ended up with 15 thousandths, which is very small. That's that. They're thin, very thin, and they make them all the way up to 30s. I think the gold ones are. So that came out pretty sweet. When I get all that bolted together, I'll turn the camera on. And like I said, these are a pain in the ass, so I'm not going to make a video of that. If you have to pull those out and you're going to buy roller rockers, I would suggest asking them at CB before you have the head sent to you if they can change the studs, because that was a pain in the ass there. But that's what's happening here. I need to put some tools away, clean up, reorganize, and then we'll get back to bolting this together.